From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight. The U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday issued a major voting rights decision. It ruled that Alabama's new congressional map likely violates the Voting Rights Act. The decision was made by a 5-4 vote. Chief Justice John G. Roberts, Jr. wrote the majority opinion. He was joined by Justice Kavanaugh and the court's 3 liberal members, Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Voting rights advocates had feared that the decision would undermine the Voting Rights Act. A new report exposes Google's involvement in the forced labor of Uyghur Muslims in what China calls the Xinjiang region. Justice for All presented the report during a Wednesday U.S. Senate briefing on the issue of Islamophobia leading to the persecution of Muslim minorities. The Chicago-based group is the world's largest Muslim-led human rights organization. The report's lead author, Dr. Mohammed Abdullah, and Zumrot Daoud, an Uyghur survivor of Chinese concentration camps, spoke at the Senate briefing. The document, prepared by Justice for All and the University of Toronto, traced Google's supply chain to the Xinjiang, or East Turkestan region. It said, unlike Apple, Google hides the suppliers in China so no one can track whether they use Uyghur forced laborers. The report also said that the American tech giant is linked to human rights abuses against the Uyghur population. The report includes examples showing how Apple was implicated with the same supplier while Google was cleared of blame. The companies did not take disciplinary action against complicit suppliers. The report makes several recommendations, including strengthening current legislative efforts. U.S. law requires American companies to disclose imports from China and certify whether their products or any components were made using slave labor. Both chambers of the Illinois General Assembly have passed a bill requiring all state-funded facilities to offer halal and kosher meals. Illinois must now provide meals for all faiths in schools, prisons, and hospitals, if requested. Senator Ram Vilivalam, who championed the bill, said lawmakers recognize the cultural needs of the community. Packaged meals for schools would have been met state and federal nutritional guidelines. The bill awaits Governor J.B. Pritzker's signature to take effect. Once signed, Illinois will become the first state in the U.S. to mandate halal and kosher food in public facilities. More than 400 parents protested in Rockville, Maryland, against a curriculum change requiring young children to study human sexuality and family life at an early age. Previously, families could opt out of such topics being taught to their students. The new curriculum covers sexuality and gender identity topics from preschool through the 8th grade. The Council on American Islamic Relations said families were previously informed in advance about the teaching of topics related to their religious beliefs. Parents argued topics of sexual orientation and gender identity were being introduced too early. Schools abruptly changed their parental notification policy beginning in March. Protest organizers said they understand people have different orientations, but they said there should be an opportunity to opt out when teaching children about sex at an early age. 3 families sued the Montgomery County Public Schools Board and superintendent over the updated curriculum. They argued that the lack of an opt-out option violated their First Amendment rights. 2 people have been killed and 5 injured in a shooting in Richmond, Virginia high school. on Tuesday night. Police identified a 19-year-old suspect as the shooter. They said the teen fired into a crowd after the high school's graduation ceremony. The student and his stepfather were killed. Videos show hundreds of people, many wearing graduation robes, running for safety. The suspect, identified as Omari Pollard, is charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. Police said the shooting was targeted and the result of an ongoing dispute. The Gun Violence Archive reports that more than 200 mass killings have taken place in the United States this year. A white Florida woman accused of killing a black mother of 4 has been taken into custody. Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods said 58-year-old Luis Lawrence is charged with manslaughter with a firearm and culpable negligence. The sheriff said the defendant had a 2.5-year-old feud with the late Ajike Owens. She shot through her apartment door, killing Owens, authorities said. The sheriff said Owens had gone to Lawrence's apartment to complain about her yelling and throwing skates at Akita's children. Lawrence had accused her of trespassing. Sheriff's deputies who responded to a call about trespassing found Owens with gunshot wounds. She later died at a hospital. Civil rights attorney Bren Crump said Lawrence had called the children racial slurs. Lawrence said she acted in self-defense because Owens had tried to break down her door. At a vigil Monday, Pamela Diaz, Owens' mother, said she wanted justice for her daughter and grandchildren. Smoke from Canadian wildfires take over 13 U.S. states. Details after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Canadian wildfires are seriously affecting the air quality in some parts of the United States. At least 13 states have issued warnings as thick smoke clouds the skies, forcing people to stay indoors. The National Weather Service says air quality has dropped to dangerous levels, including in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. It's urging people to stay indoors, especially those suffering from heart and lung disease. DC's public schools canceled all outdoor activities, including sporting events, because of poor air quality. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said air quality in the 5 boroughs is deteriorating due to smoke from Canada's wildfires. The city's public schools also canceled outdoor activities Wednesday and urged students to stay indoors. Smoke from the Canadian wildfires is expected to reach as far south as South Carolina. Israel's Foreign Minister Eli Cohen has criticized U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris for her comments on a controversial plan to overhaul Tel Aviv's judiciary. The issue, which will affect the independence of Israel's judiciary, has caused tension between the longtime allies. At a reception hosted by the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., Tuesday, to mark the 75th anniversary of Israel's founding, Harris called for an independent judiciary in Israel. She said the U.S. would continue to stand up for the values that form the foundation of the U.S. and Israel relationship. Harris added these values include strengthening democracies and building strong institutions with checks and balances. The far-right Israeli government's controversial plan to overhaul the judiciary has drawn widespread criticism in Israel and abroad. The opposition sees the move as a power grab in favor of the executive branch. Cohen criticized Harris in an interview with the radio station KAN, claiming she had not read the reforms. But he also attempted to soften his remarks about Harris on Twitter. On March 27, Netanyahu, who is under corruption investigation, announced a temporary halt to the plan. A group of European diplomats visited a Palestinian family facing forced eviction by Israeli authorities. Led by the EU representative in Palestine, Sven Kuhn von Bergstorff, the diplomats arrived at the Damascus Gate on Tuesday, one of the most famous entrances to the old city of Jerusalem. From there, they walked together to the Halidiyah neighborhood a few hundred meters from Al-Aqsa Mosque. The family received an Israeli eviction notice ordering them to vacate their home by June 11th. 72-year-old Mustafa and his 68-year-old wife, Nora Ghait Saber, have been living in the house for more than 5 decades. Bergstorff also said that forced eviction is politically and morally unacceptable. He said that the Palestinian mother who suffers from illnesses will lose her protected residency status. Recently, Israel's Supreme Court, the country's highest judicial body, rejected the family's appeal against the eviction. This is the second solidarity visit by foreign diplomats to the Palestinian family in less than 3 months. The family has called for urgent intervention and popular mobilization to stop their eviction. Dozens of Palestinian families in East Jerusalem are threatened with eviction from their homes for the benefit of Israeli settlers. Palestinians insist that East Jerusalem is the future capital of the Palestinian state. Israel maintains that Jerusalem, including its eastern and western parts, is its capital. On the second anniversary of the horrific attack on the Muslim family in London, Ontario, rights groups say Islamophobia has not stopped in Canada. On June 6, 2021, a pickup truck plowed into 3 generations of the Afzal family, killing 4 family members between the ages of 15 and 74. Salman Afzal, his wife Madiha Afzal, his mother Talat Afzal, and their daughter Yumna were all killed. The only survivor was the couple's 9-year-old son. The defendant, Nathaniel Veltman, is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Prosecutors call the incident an act of terrorism. The trial against him is scheduled to begin in September. Taha Ghayur, Executive Director of Justice for All Canada, said that despite the government's efforts, Islamophobia continues to grow. He added that the number of attacks on mosques in Canada has increased significantly. On June 17th, area businesses will open a garden of reflection and remembrance in honor of the Afzal family. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia will discuss the legal status of the 250,000 Rohingya Muslims living in the kingdom. According to reports, the Burma-born Muslims entered Saudi Arabia on Pakistani passports that have since expired. Anadolu news agency reports that Qadir Yar Tiwana, a spokesman for the Pakistan's Interior Ministry, said the 2 sides will discuss renewing their passports. An unnamed official at the Pakistani embassy in Riyadh told the news agency that the Rohingya came to Saudi Arabia in the 60s. He said there was an agreement that Riyadh would eventually grant them citizenship. The Pakistani government stopped renewing their passports in 2012. The official said many Rohingya men are married to Saudi women. Under Saudi laws, their children cannot apply for Saudi citizenship. These children, who have neither Pakistani nor Saudi passports, effectively are stateless. A group of Muslim scholars are urging Tunisian authorities to release Rashid Ghannouch and other political prisoners. A Tunisian court sentenced Ghannouch to 1 year in prison on May 15th on terrorism charges. Ghannouch is among the main opponents of President Kais Saied, who dissolved parliament in July 2021. He represented Ennahda, a political party that held a majority in parliament. Ghannouch was arrested April 17th on charges of conspiring against state security. The International Union of Muslim Scholars pleaded for justice for him and other political prisoners. It also called on Muslim scholars worldwide to urgently advocate for justice for Ghannouch. Senegal has closed its diplomatic missions abroad following attacks. The West African country's foreign ministry made the announcement after protesters attacked the mission in Bordeaux, Milan, Paris, and New York. Foreign Minister Assata Tall Sall described the move as a precautionary measure to prevent damage. Tensions are high in the country following the sentencing of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko to 2 years in prison. At least 16 people have been killed and more than 350 injured in clashes over 3 days. The protests have spread abroad. The Consulate General's office in the Italian city of Milan was vandalized, and passport machines and identity cards were destroyed. Sonko was charged with raping and threatening to kill Adji Sarr, an employee of a beauty salon in Dakar in 2021. The court acquitted him of the rape charges, but sentenced him to 2 years in prison for corruption of youth. He's barred from running in next year's presidential election. Sonko ran against President Macky Sall in the 2019 election. He said the case against him is politically motivated. Before we end the broadcast today, may I make a special request? It takes 55 hours of work daily to produce this news for you. It's news with a unique perspective, and you can only find it here. Sound Vision is a nonprofit organization which produces this news. And just like PBS and NPR, it depends on your donations. Please visit Muslim Network TV to donate now, or click on the link below to donate. That's all from our Washington, D.C. studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more episodes and content, keep watching Muslim Network TV and visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.